Well, Joe, you and I are a little bit. We're not supposed to exist. When you read the trades, when you read the newspapers, they say 99.99% of all scientists say there is no such that they agree that global warming is going on, that it's man-made, that it's going to be catastrophic, and that carbon dioxide is the reason for it. You and I don't agree with that. That must mean we don't exist.
Well, here's the thing. That figure is really very, very deceptive. In that, for instance, there were only X amount of people that returned the questionnaire, and what the 97% of the people that returned that question said that answer. It's kind of funny because I was speaking out at the Heartland conference, and Dana Rohrabacher asked, how many of you people believe in climate change? And 100% of us raised our hand. All right? There's 600 people, all of us with degrees and about 100 PhDs sitting in the audience. We all believe that climate changes. That's why if you go up to Wisconsin, there's been rainforests in Wisconsin. There's also been glaciers all the way down in New York City. Why do you think the lower Mississippi Valley is so fertile? Because at one time it was under the Gulf of Mexico. It was the Gulf of Mexico. So the climate's always changing. It's the design of the planet. 3/4 of the land in the northern hemisphere, 3/4 of the water in the southern hemisphere, Earth wobbling on its axis. The sun is a variable star. It's not always a constant star. So the incoming radiation, outgoing radiation, product of centuries and centuries of just back and forth, trying to find a balance it can't have.
Joe, let me ask you this.
Let me just give all of us believe the climate changes. But when he asked the question, how many of you believe that men are causing the climate to change, no one raised their hand. So out of those 600 scientists in that room, 100% of them don't believe that man is causing the climate to change. And in addition, if you look at stuff like, for instance, the Oregon petition, over 31,000 of us signed a petition saying we do not support the Kyoto Accord. And there were 9,000 of those people that were PhDs. Now, how come nobody brings that up?
Nobody ever does. Nobody ever does. Let me ask you this, Joe. What's the end game in them having us want to accept without any reservation the fact that they're right and people like you and Stephen are wrong? What's the end game in that?
Well, first of all, they're not right because they made statements and they're not occurring. If I told you if I told Lovable Larry back there there's going to be a foot of snow and start pouring rain, you get a foot of snow, I can't say, well, it's natural variability. It melted before it hit the ground. They're not right. The temperature's no longer rising. In addition, there are really some hideous things going on, folks. For instance, since 1978, we've had the ability to measure temperatures by satellite. The objective ability. So at the end, 1978 is when the Pacific flipped into its warm cycle. So it's almost like we walked into a bathroom and turned on a warm shower. Of course, the air is going to heat up till it adapts to that type of thing. But we weren't measuring temperatures by satellite before. Now, what they're doing is they are readjusting temperatures down in those pre-satellite eras. And so you look at the 1930s, over 50% of the state highs in the United States were set in the 1930s, yet all these other decades from 1880 all the way up to 2010, we've only had the other 50%. So
you're talking about high temperature. You're talking about high temperature records there.
The states, yes.
Yeah.
It's not getting any hotter. The reason why you're getting some of the temperatures being higher is, A, you're getting more stations online, B, more of them are in cities. Okay, when you took off close to 1/3 of the reporting stations of the planet when the Soviet Union broke down, they just erased all their weather stations out in the middle of nowhere. So that added by taking those cold places off, you added to the database a lot of warm things. But what they're doing is they're doing something called normalization of temperature, which means that basically they have carte blanche to change anything and make it the way they want. Now, I just blogged on the Patriot Post about, if you read the quotes of the people driving this, read their quotes, their exact words, you will see that this has very little to do, if nothing to do, with science. And then when you go to the fact that since fiscal year 1993, we spent $165 billion on climate change, and $35 billion of that is on climate science, No wonder we spent only $130 billion to put a man on the moon and then build a moon base. NASA, they're going to where the money is there.
Joe, let me go back and ask you this, because you just said something that's very interesting, and I don't want it to escape our listeners. Are you saying that they're not entering in the cold places like Siberia and places like that these days when they're figuring?
We could never before measure temperatures in the Arctic. And we had an Arctic station up there, by the way. The Danish have been running a station up there. It had its coldest summer on record last year, and this year is trying to beat it up there. Most of the warming, gentlemen, has occurred in the Arctic winters. And here's what happens. The metric we use to judge global warming is obviously temperature. People say, okay, yes, temperature. But the number one greenhouse gas is water vapor. The warming in the Arctic of 3, 4, 5 degrees has very little effect on the total global water vapor compared to the drop in the tropical ocean that began in 2007 in the Pacific. That's where the shooting match is. The shooting match is that the oceans are the great thermostat of the world. Bill Gray, the famed hurricane forecaster out of Colorado State, for years was saying we were going to go into a warm period like this because he's done something what we call the meridional overturning circulation. What is that? That is this big cycle in the ocean that's driven where the ocean is a constant state of currents coming up in one place, falling in another. It's what we call a thermohaline circulation. It's all over the planet. Now, how does it start? It's a product of decades and centuries of action and reaction of the entire planet. So what goes on here is basically you have these huge natural events, and what they're trying to say is that the increase of 1.8 parts per million a year by a human being, by the way, only 0.3 parts per million by the U.S., that's 0.3 parts per million by the U.S. a year, is the control knob on the climate. That's
insane.
Joe, you're getting to something I want to get at. By the way, you're listening to America on the Edge with C.L. Bryant. We are talking to Joe Bastardi with weatherbell.com. Joe, we have about 2.5 minutes left here, and you're getting into something I really want you to try and sum up as quickly as you can. But your triple crown of climate change. Tell the people about that.
Well, what that is it's the sun, the ocean, and stochastic events are the main drivers of the climate. It's what Aristotle and kind of said, search for the unmoved mover. What is the unmoved mover? Do you think it's CO2? Of course not. It is the design of the system. And the sun is the grand conductor of the orchestra, okay? And what happens is that the oceans react, you get volcanic activity. These things have far, far more effect. You know, if you want to you just want to cut all this away, what I do is, when I get tired of arguing with people, I say, what's the perfect temperature of the planet? Give it to me. They can't do that. Do you really believe 0.3 parts per million of CO2 a year by the U.S. is worth shutting down our economy and our way of life? Okay, where people are starving in the streets of this country. I know there are a lot of places where we could have spent $165 billion, a lot better for this country and for some of the things that are going on. But that's the political realm of it. Okay, and finally, what's your forecast? When your temperature is going to catch up to your projections, because right now you're way behind. And I was on the O'Reilly factor back in 2007, put up that triple crown of cool and say, you're going to start seeing the temperatures begin to fall off, and they are. They're going to fall off faster once the Atlantic flips into its colder mode.
It's going to get cold down here in about a week.
It's a lot nastier to try to with the amount of people we have in this country and on this planet to put up with a colder climate than a warmer climate. Remember, man did not evolve out of the Arctic. Okay, we came from warm climates. So the whole thing is no longer, folks, about global warming. It's about political, economic, and there's another issue involved. People wanting to save the planet or look at themselves like they're gods or semi-gods and being worshipped and all this stuff. This is crazy. You know,
Joe, I want you to answer this real quick. I want you to answer this one real quickly for me. Do you think that it is arrogance on man's part, on our part, to think that somehow we have the power or the authority to control the weather?
My goodness, yes. And the arrogance of man is born out of the ignorance of God. That's what I believe, okay? So, people want to call me some kind of, nut job or stuff. Ecclesiastes 1:9 sums it up. There's nothing new under the sun.